In the wild and dramatic landscape of the Western Lake District lies Muncaster Castle, which has been home to the Pennington family for over 800 years. Built in the early 1300s, this impressive medieval castle has stood command at this strategic position in northern England for centuries. It's a castle of royal connections and a very special treasure.
That's Henry VI holding the Luck of Muncaster, and he gave us the drinking bowl, saying as long as there's the bowl's unriven, then there'll always be Penningtons here. And we've still got the bowl.
When I married into the British Aristocracy, it was the start of a wonderfully exciting journey. But it was also a little daunting. I became a Viscountess, and for an American girl from a small town outside Chicago, that was quite a shock. I live with my husband Luke, heir to the Earl of Sandwich, and our family at Mapperton House in Dorset. Living in a place like this is a joy, but also a challenge. And every day we're aware that we're preserving a very special part of Britain's heritage. Mapperton has opened up an extraordinary new world for me, and I can't wait to share it with you all. So if you love castles and manors and stately homes as much as I do, please join this American Viscountess as I journey into the British countryside in search of some of Britain's finest historic houses. The spectacular landscape of the Lake District shrouds Muncaster Castle in a mist of history. Its geographical position on the River Usk and near the coast has shaped the history of this area since Roman times. The castle today is under the watchful care of the Frost Pennington family. Peter and Iona have been joined by their eldest son Ewan to navigate Muncaster into the future.
Hello.
Hello.
Good, how are you?
I'm good.
So nice to see you.
And
who's this?
That's Mashy.
Mashi. Hello. How old is Mashi?
2 and a bit.
Oh my goodness.
She's just a baby, but she's very friendly.
Yes. Anyway, thank you. Hello.
Hello. Hello.
The whole family's here. What I love to
see you again.
It's like a wonderful welcome. Hello, you.
Hello. Good to see you again.
So nice to see you. Okay, can I just admit something, everybody? I've never been to the Lake District before. I know.
That's terrible.
And it's beautiful.
Where have you been all your life?
And the West is not
best.
here.
Very definitely.
It's an adventure to get here.
Yeah, and then once you're here, the view
Oh, it's amazing,
is
isn't it?
outstanding.
Gateway to paradise.
And it changes the whole time too.
It's incredible.
As the clouds move, it's
Yeah.
fantastic.
It's unbelievable.
Moves
And
around.
Here you are, this enormous castle.
And this is the medieval Great Hall.
Okay.
Dates to around 1300.
Was that kind of the main entrance that I went
Well, that's
through?
changed a little bit. It's
It
not
do-
the
it
most
does.
impressive main entrance, but it keeps the wind out.
Well, I mean, you've got an impressive castle, so it's okay about the entrance, because you're like, wow.
But it's a strange place because it's very different. It could be 2 totally different castles, couldn't it? You look at that side and it's long and thin and impressive. And you look at this side and
very
it's
Gothic.
down to a very deep ravine and sort of round the edge.
My favourite view is when you're looking up it at the hill, because I
Right.
wouldn't want to run at it.
Dominating the
Yeah,
land.
it's dominating. It's saying, hi, I'm here. I'm going to defend everybody.
Which makes sense because if it was Roman foundations and the Roman tower, then it would look after the crossing, going across the river.
Right.
It's
And look
guarding
up the valley.
Yeah.
So
So this is medieval hall.
And it's where the community would meet and mingle and eat and drink. And
They did everything
talk.
here.
And the whole community would be here and into the tower to defend themselves against the
Right.
rampaging neighbours or the Scots or whatever.
Right.
And this is the symbol of the family, the Pennington cat,
So
the wild
wow,
cat.
The cat. I mean, I've been to a lot of historic houses and I've never really seen a symbol of a cat before. Usually it's some type of dragon or griffin or
Or a lion.
A lion. Yeah, but a cat.
Sometimes an eagle
I love
or a
it.
wild boar
Yes.
or something. And this is not the domestic cat, this is the wild cat that still exists in Scotland, used to be around here. They're brave and ferocious and defend their ground
Fearless.
and fights like Billy-O. And the symbol that you see on this portrait of Admiral Sir John Pendleton, who was Admiral of the Narrow Seas for King Charles I, that's the English Channel. And the other is the 5 blue lozenges on the yellow background. So the colours of the family are the gold and the blue.
And you've got so many paintings here as well. Does one kind of stand out?
Well, this one here is quite
Yes.
interesting. That's Henry VI, holding the Luck of Muncaster, which was his communion bowl.
Okay.
He was found wandering after the Battle of Hexham by Pennington shepherds and brought here to convalesce. And he gave us the drinking bowl as he left,
Right.
saying, as long as there's the bowl's unriven, then there'll always be Penningtons here. And we've still got the bowl.
And you still have that bowl?
Venetian glass, yeah.
Oh
The
my
Luck
goodness.
of Muncaster.
The Luck of Muncaster.
All the luck of the family is
So you
embodied.
took him in. The
That's
family
right,
took
yeah.
him in. And he was here.
During the Wars of the Roses.
Iona, am I right in thinking that this has kind of come through the female line recently or the past?
Well, the past 2 generations, my mother and then me.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And then previously, my great-great-grandfather, it came through his mother from the Seymours.
Because you guys have been here for how long?
Well over 800 years.
800 years. So you have all these ancestors. How do you keep track of them?
Well, we keep finding exciting things about some of them. But if we go through here, we can see
Great. Ooh.
a picture or two.
Okay, so this, I'm assuming, is the dining room, and what a spectacular dining room. It's enormous.
It's fabulous.
It's great, isn't it?
It's
And
enormous.
this table
Yes.
is made from one walnut
No,
tree.
I don't believe you.
It's fantastic, isn't it?
This is made from
One walnut.
tree.
Yeah.
It expands to fill the whole room, and we can seat up to 28 or even 30 people around it. It's a fabulous room for a dinner party.
It is sensational. Absolutely sensational.
And the other interesting feature of the room is the wallpaper, which isn't wallpaper at all, but leather embossed with gold leaf. And it's a hanging rather than being stuck to the walls. But,
And so when was this room created to what we see today, especially with that wall hanging, really?
About the 1880s, really.
1880s,
Yeah.
okay.
Rather than have embroideries and things, it's much cheaper to actually have this sort of wallpaper.
Really? So they were...
And very
well, in the
fashionable.
medieval age,
Yeah.
you insulated and decorated with tapestries, but that was hugely labour intensive. This was
Yeah.
the first foray into the sort of wallpaper industry, if you like.
So this is leather, and then it would keep it warm, I guess, having the leather on the walls.
Yeah.
Similar
looks
to...
very rich
and
and
it looks,
beautiful.
yeah, and it's
Yeah.
beautiful.
And it would look very gold in its original.
Now, Iona, you mentioned that there were paintings in here about...
The Seymours.
Yes. So how it went through the female line.
That's right.
Yeah.
So my great-great-grandfather, John Ramsden's wife, was Gwendolyn Seymour.
Okay.
So all the Seymour things came through that way.
Okay.
And she had 2 brothers. This one was the younger one. And he was a diplomat in India. And he had a bit of a fight with the bear and lost. And there's lots of letters to his mother about how he is. And he actually got gangrene and died out there.
Okay.
And then this one's the older one. And he wasn't particularly happy. And he'd gone for a walk in the park. And he found this young girl crying. And he comforted her. She came and sat on the seat beside him. And he comforted her. And she had just been sacked, basically, by one of the houses. And so she had nowhere to go or anything. And so he actually took her in, fell in love with her. And they ran away to France.
Oh, my goodness.
And he then got consumption. And there's letters to his mother saying, look, he had 2 children.
Right.
Look, I've got TB. And he then came home and he died, and his mother took in his girlfriend and his 2 children. And then his two children married quite well.
Right.
And his mother brought them up.
So, but then how did it go through the female line then?
So their sister, Gwendolyn,
Gotcha.
was my great-great-grandmother.
I see. Okay, so she's the one who married John.
Yeah.
Basically, a guy goes to India, he's the hero, runs into a bear, the bear wins, he passes away, oh no, sad. Then older brother, he's the heir, falls in love with the scullery maid, has a passionate affair with her, but does it out of wedlock, runs off to France, has 2 children with her. Those children are illegitimate.
Okay.
And so the Duke and Duchess of Somerset of the time, when unfortunately he dies young, because of illness, they take in his children, but unfortunately because they're illegitimate, they can't inherit it.
They can't inherit.
But they're still brought up in high society. They marry incredibly well. As Mum highlighted, they become famous for a whole host of things. There's a book on them. It's amazing. And then the whole conclusion of this is the Duke and Duchess of Somerset, the daughter, is the one that is married to one of our family. As a consequence, we have lots of Somerset possessions. In fact, I believe we're more closely related to the Duke of Somerset, this Duke of Somerset, than the current Duke of Somerset is, because we're direct line.
So he was meant to be the next Duke of Somerset.
Yes.
And they had 2 illegitimate children. They couldn't take it on.
And
his
it went
sister
back up and down.
Is my great-grandmother.
sister's great-grandmother.
I just think every family tree is a bit like a Sudoku puzzle, and you just need to
so good.
That's the whole point, because if he'd married, his son would have been the heir and become the Duke of Somerset.
This could be my favorite family conversation about ancestors ever that I've ever done, because it is, number one, it's so
confusing.
Fun, but it's so confusing, especially when there's like death of a bear, he's died of consumption, ran up with scullery maid. You can't make it up. Can I also just point out, though, while we were having fun telling that enthralling story, the view here, you look out these windows and you actually think it's like painted landscape there. It's that picture perfect that it almost doesn't seem
It changes the whole time too. It's fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, I have to say, when we walked in, it looks completely different from how it looks now.
And it's very romantic. It's the wonderful landscape and the gateway to paradise, as John Ruskin described it.
It's absolutely
You've got England's
stunning.
highest mountain, Scafell Pike, away to the left, and just the Cumbrian Fells tumbling down into the sea here at the coast at Muncaster.
This video is sponsored by Babbel.
Questo appartamento è centralissimo e ben collegato.
Questo appartamento è centralissimo e ben collegato.
Oh my goodness, you guys, I'm currently at the most incredible castle here in England, and I absolutely love castle hopping across the country because there is so much history, beauty, and inspiration to take in. But when I need a bit of downtime to relax and recharge, I switch on my Babbel app. And Babbel is one of the top language learning apps in the entire world and the sponsor of today's video. And it's my little escape from every day. It's helping me learn Italian so I can connect even more deeply with my little Italian house, which I love so much, and with the culture. What I love about Babbel is how practical it is. The lessons are created by over 650 language experts, so I know I'm learning the real life skills I'll need for conversations about food, about travel, and so much more. Plus, Babbel is scientifically proven, that's right, to help you start learning a new language in just 3 weeks, everybody. Questo castello è incredibile. This castle is incredible. So whether I'm exploring castles, unwinding at home, or dreaming of Italian piazzas, Babbel makes it so easy to fit learning into my day. With lessons, games, podcasts, and bonus content, I can practice wherever and whenever I want to. So imagine yourself, I don't know, being able to order coffee in Paris, or explore hidden gems in Spain, or even chat with the locals about the history of an incredible castle, all in their language. That's right, Babbel makes those dreams a reality. And right now, Babbel is offering you up to 60% off of your subscription. So just click the link in the description or scan the QR code on the screen to get started today. And before you go, do let me know in the comments down below what language you want to learn and why, because I would love to hear your stories. Ci vediamo a presto!
So this is the incredible drawing room, or technically the withdrawing room, where the ladies would withdraw after dinner.
Yes.
To do ladylike pursuits.
Yeah, it's wonderful. So on the walls, I'm looking around, it looks like a lot of ancestors, is that right? And I'm presuming yours. Yes. Now, we could spend all day here going through each and every one, which I'm sure you know tons of stories.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. An exact date, the lot.
But maybe just point out a few that you think are important to you.
Well, this one is Lord Seymour, the Protector. He's my 13th great-grandfather.
Okay, wow.
And his sister was Jane Seymour.
There you go. That is a big...
The favourite queen of Henry VIII.
Of Henry VIII. That's a big connection there.
Yeah.
Wow. So that dates to, that's basically, we're sort of 1530s,
1540s.
exactly.
Yeah. Quite a long time ago.
Yeah, quite a long time ago.
He was a general who won the last battle in the Anglo-Scots War, the Battle of Pinkie, the last battle in the Anglo-Scots War. So I don't like him much being Scottish, but anyway.
No, very well. He was beheaded. Are you happy
He was
about
beheaded,
that?
well.
But more importantly, is the recent generations.
Yes. So this is my mother here.
Yes.
And father.
Okay, I can see the resemblance. Actually, in both. I mean, I see you and your mother, but then when I look at your father, I'm like, oh, I can see you and your father as well.
Strange, isn't it?
Yeah. What lovely, lovely
And
portraits.
then she looks very severe there. She wasn't at all.
What was her
Kind and
name?
gentle.
Phillida.
Phillida.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And then her mother is up above. It's
Wow.
Veronica.
What's her name?
Veronica.
Veronica. Very glamorous.
Very glamorous.
Wow.
Yeah, she liked being glamorous.
Yeah, very glamorous.
And her husband, my grandfather, Sir William, down at the bottom.
Yes.
And then his father, John Ramsden,
Okay, so that's your great
grandfather.
grandfather. I'm just trying to follow the pieces
And
here.
he's the one who inherited Muncaster in 1917.
And I see. This is my great grandmother, Joan Ramsden.
She's very glamorous.
She is, isn't she?
I mean, and she's sort of center stage there. Yes. They all, thought, well, no, we're not going to compete with that, so we'll just do smaller.
I knew her, actually.
And what was she like, as glamorous as she looks there?
She was very old by the time I knew her.
Right.
Well, you knew.
Great granny, yeah.
Wow.
She died in 1976.
Yeah, something like that.
Oh, my
Yeah,
goodness.
she was getting on a bit.
Right.
She was here a bit in the war when the Tate Gallery pictures were here, because they were responsible for looking after them. And she moved around a bit, but she was. It sounds as if she was.
So, let's just back up a little bit. So, Second World War, the Tate put their pictures here.
The Tate, we had Van Gogh sunflowers and.
It was amazing, actually.
What?
What was really interesting was somebody who was a maid here, she's died now, but she was telling us that they were told to prepare for refugees.
Okay.
And so they got everything ready for refugees, and all exciting. And the train came into Ravenglass, and the wagons went down to collect them. And then they brought these packing cases into the front hall, and they can remember looking through into the front hall through the end of the passage and seeing these and think, they're not refugees.
So we had between 600 and 800 paintings from the Tate Gallery, which was bombed and very badly damaged, and they survived the war very safely.
And the Tate Gallery is, of course, the national collection.
Of course.
All the portraits in here, I mean, they're all fascinating lives, and every single one has interesting stories to tell.
Muncaster was remodeled in the 1780s during the tenure of John Pennington, first Lord Muncaster. And what were once the medieval kitchens were transformed.
Yeah.
Now this
it's got a,
is a library,
it's
if
got a
I've ever
vibe.
seen one.
It's not bad, is it?
It's not bad. And then when was it converted?
Medieval times.
No, it wasn't it wasn't converted from being a medieval time. Okay, this is where we bring in our expert. Dad, when is it?
Well, in the 1780s, when the first Lord Moncaster inherited, it was no longer needed to be a castle to defend, and by then knowledge was power, not the number of people you had in your mini army to fight for you. So the first Lord Moncaster, Sir John, he moved the kitchen to far end of the castle, and knowledge was power, so he needed a library. And he established this amazing room, octagonal library with well over 4,000 books. And it was the internet of the 18th century.
Yeah. So now I've got another question. Do you use this room?
Yes, we do. On occasion, we use it at Christmas.
Yes.
And it's a wonderful room. And now Ewan has managed to install ground source heating. It's warmer than it was. And if we ever get time to come in here and sit in this wonderful space is amazing.
Right. It's lovely in here, and I can see it's just so well thought out. And you've placed so many family photographs, and just you've got a sort of a lovely chair collection there.
Those are apprentice pieces. So what you used to do is the apprentices used to make them, and then they used to be taken around like a catalogue.
Really? I didn't know that.
It's great, isn't it? So you
That
pick,
is-
right, I'll have one of them, or 6 of them,
And that's
or
quite right.
blah, blah.
And apprentices were not allowed to make the full-size thing because it was very costly materials if they got it wrong. So that was their final exam. But then they made great samples for the master craftsmen to be able to take round and show the
I had no
sample
idea.
of their wares.
Good, isn't it?
I had no idea. I have learned something really properly new here. That is incredible. And I've just stepped foot in here. I had no idea. That's fantastic. So do you have any of these?
No, strangely, many houses you'll go to, you'll find a model, an apprentice piece, and a set of chairs that match it. We don't have any chairs that match those apprentice pieces.
Right.
So
But you've got
I
this
think they were
lovely
just collected
display.
by great-grandfather.
Yeah.
And then there's a wonderful another item there is what we call the alabaster lady, who I love. She used to be on a table in the middle of the Great Hall, but we had to move her in here for protection because when we did weddings and things, people would touch her and things. But Great Granny, the husband of great-grandfather Sir John, who inherited in 1917.
The wife, you mean?
The wife,
the wife
the wife of Sir John.
Yeah, the wife, not
Yes,
the husband.
the wife, yes. Her husband was Sir John. Anyway, they used to, when they were living here, they used to have lunch in the Great Hall, and the alabaster lady was there, but she thought it was terrible to eat lunch in front of a naked lady being born in the Victorian age, so she knitted a little pink cardigan for her and covered her up so only her head was showing. But when Great Granny died, so did the cardigan.
And who was the alabaster lady carved by? It wasn't Michelangelo. It was
Gambellina, John of Bologna.
Wow.
A famous.
So like the last of the Italian.
Yes.
But the experts all argue about experts always argue about whose things and artworks are attributed, but that's part of the fun.
Yeah, no, it is part of the fun. Now, as I look up, of course, I was looking at sort of can you get up there?
You can get on the gallery. We can't let the public up there for health and safety.
No,
reasons,
no.
But it's the question we get asked all the time. How do
Right.
you get on the gallery?
And then I'm going further up, and that ceiling.
A few years ago, we had a problem with dampness here. And this ceiling here had never sort of been painted. It was still pink plaster.
Okay.
And so we did quite a lot of work. We had a really good apprentice at the time, and we painted this blue and put the stars on. And he looked up when we got the charter, December 1208, and he put the stars where they were at that time, which is fantastic, isn't it?
Yeah, so to match the sky when the Penningtons arrived here 816 years ago.
No, when they got the charter.
That's unbelievable.
Okay.
When they got the
She's
charter.
right
When they
there.
got the charter.
Yeah, I know, but as in the first evidence, okay, let's,
That's incredible.
It's great, isn't it?
And who thought of that idea?
Iona.
Did you?
Yeah, but
that's pretty clever.
There were letters a long time ago of, I think originally it had the signs of the zodiac.
Okay.
But we weren't good enough to do that.
Right.
So we thought,
This is,
Yeah, the first Lord Moncaster's ceiling was that, and that had vanished in the Victorian renovations, and so we thought it nice to go back to a nice celestial ceiling.
good, isn't it?
it's very clever, and it's a talking point, and it's really, I think it's wonderful to be able to look up and think that 800 years ago, That was the sky.
I don't really know how the sky changes over 800 years.
Well, you can download it off the internet, and it's okay. There might have been a supernova.
Nice stars,
there might be 1 or 2
Ewan.
stars missing.
Just nice stars on the
whole,
roof.
that's pretty much.
But it is a fabulous room to come and just sit and look at the stars and think about how small we are in the cosmos. But it's a brilliant room.
Who was it? One of your father or your no, not your father, your grandfather or great grandfather? Who the reason why it's got a door up there rather than a spiral staircase through that door is because he really enjoyed sitting there watching the racing, and he got too old to be able to go to the nearest toilet, and so he had the spiral staircases removed, so there was a urinal.
That is a total load of cobblers.
Who told me that story then?
I didn't tell you that. That is a total load of cobblers.
If someone told me that story. Why have we got the spiral
urinal
staircase?
was always in there. We're not showing that.
Absolute
But when
rubbish.
Sir John inherited, they didn't want
He
chamber
used to
pots
sit
under
in
the
here
bed.
watching television and watching the racing
So
while people were
they
trooping
converted
through.
the room up there to be a bathroom, which meant the spiral staircase no
Can I
longer
just
worked.
say, I just arrived, and like how much fun it is to already be with you. So I hope
Family
it even
dynamic.
gets more
Well,
fun.
okay. Can I try a different part of the story then? Supposedly, he would sit there watching the racing
No, it's here.
because he was really
It's right there.
and he would sit so still watching the racing, and then something would happen in the race that he'd be like, "Yes!" And then everyone, like the general public, would just be walking around, and then
And thought he was a dummy.
thought he was a mannequin, and then suddenly this thing would come alive, and he'd be like, "Yes!" And they would be terrified.
And he wasn't doing his job, which was watching the public.
Make sure they didn't.
Coming in.
Yeah.
Anyway, I mean, listen, I'm already in love with all of you, so I can't wait for what else is going to unfold during my stay here. at
Plenty more
Moncastle
adventures to
Castle.
come.
I'm sure it'll be very eventful.
All right, so the spiral staircase. Okay.
No,
Who told me that?
The
That's
spiral staircase are actually downstairs.
Okay, I think
Yes, we still have the spiral.
Yeah, we have. Yeah, okay, long.
We're never allowed to throw anything out.
I thought it was just you needed to get.
Brilliant. I'm absolutely loving my time with Peter, Iona, and Ewan. On the upper floors of the castle, I met up with Kim Armstrong, whose passion for Muncaster, and in particular the textile collection, is inspiring.
Okay, so welcome to the Tapestry room.
I love a good tapestry, or tapestries, I should say, Kim. Fantastic. Can I just, before we even go there, because I've seen them hang around, this teal color. This is beautiful.
It's fantastic, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's some very strong colours in the castle. The teal is amazing, and it does pick out the colours in the beautiful tapestries as well, doesn't it?
It does. It's lovely, and I love the exposed floorboards as well. Anyway, we're here to talk about tapestries. I love textiles. Now, I can see them dotted around. Give me a little bit of history around them.
So in this room we have 3 of a collection of 9 Flemish tapestries that date from the 17th century. With all of our textile collection, the provenance is quite difficult to find because, I mean, the information might be here in the castle somewhere within our archives, but we haven't quite found it yet, the definite evidence. So we have to make assumptions and guesses based on the characteristics that we know from the family tree.
Yes.
So Iona's great grandfather, John Freshfield Ramsden, was a great lover of textiles and an avid collector. So we assume that most of the textile collection is here because of him.
Right.
So when he was away at war, his escapism was to go and find all these amazing textiles. And so we you know, that's amazing that we have such an incredible and vast collection here. I can't. It's very difficult to describe how vast the collection is. It's huge.
Amazing.
It's amazing.
The majority from him.
We think so. Yes, we think so.
What other textiles do you have? I guess I
have
said
an
a
example
huge fan.
of pretty much everything you could possibly imagine, from lace, costume, parliamentary robes. There's silk root textiles and crewel works, rugs, shoes, hats, even underwear and swimwear. It's an incredible collection. The Penningtons have been here for quite a long time.
Yep.
They've never thrown anything away. It's all still here. And it's our job to, it's a delight to look after it all. It really is. And you never know what you're going to find up in the archives. We come across a box, you go, okay, I have no idea what's going to be in this. Right, okay. And then you open it up and you get that magical. I've got goosebumps now just talking about it.
Oh my gosh, I want your job.
It's incredible. It really is, yes.
Okay, I'll come back and volunteer. All right, crewel. You mentioned crewel. Is there anything on crewel I could see on display?
Absolutely. There's some just across the corridor, actually, in the Queen's room.
Okay,
I'm
a big crewel fan as well.
Okay.
These are stunning, though.
They're beautiful.
Absolutely.
I know the colours and the shading in them's amazing. So there's partly wool, partly silk. So all of the lighter areas where you get the sheen, that's the silk threads, and they've used that as the highlights, and then the wool is the deeper colours to add the shadows and the shade.
Clever. And the time and the craftsmanship.
I know, and another amazing thing about these is they're woven sideways.
Oh.
So your warps, the strong grains, are going across, and the weft is the colours that's woven in and out. So they're woven sideways, and then tips.
So clever. If I had more time on this earth, I'd be on a loop.
It's very therapeutic. Let's go and look at the crewel works.
Okay, great.
Okay, so this is the Queen's room.
The Queen's room.
The Queen's room. Another
Again,
lovely strong
colour.
Yes. We redecorated in here quite recently, actually, and added the really deep red.
Deep cranberry.
Yes, and one of the reasons that we chose this colour was to complement our part of our beautiful textile collection, the crewel works.
So this, okay, give me a little bit of history on this.
So this piece dates from pretty much around 1700. It is crewel work, stitched in crewel wool.
Yes.
We think this piece is definitely professionally made. The wool that's been used is incredibly coarse, and to get the level of detail, and especially in the shading, in the hills here and in the leaves and the flowers, with that coarse wool is highly skilled. So we think it's a professional piece. Again, the provenance we're not 100% certain, but it's very likely that John Freshfield Ramsden is definitely behind it.
He's behind bringing it back.
It's his taste for sure. And it's known now as the Muncaster bed hanging.
Okay.
It's been celebrated by another Cumbrian company called the Crewel Work Company, who have recreated it as a sewing kit, which is absolutely wonderful.
Have they really? So I could go online and try to find this?
Absolutely. You can go online, buy the kit and stitch one yourself.
I did my first ever embroidery class, and we did a little bit of crewel work as well. And it's hard. It's really difficult.
It is.
I did a class. I mean, yeah.
It is like colouring in with thread, but to get that level of detail and the shading, the shading is, it's unbelievable, isn't it?
The shading is crazy, but also you have to put it up on layers.
Yes.
Layers, layers, layers,
keep
layers,
going,
and then you're actually you're building up. That's now I understand it, now that I've done that little quick course, but I can see here the lift there.
Yeah.
So they would have had layers underneath.
Layers underneath.
And then lifted, and then the shading.
And blend it up, blend all of those. It's long and short stitching, so they're all blended in together.
Well, anyway, so now I'm very obviously into embroidering, but this crewel work is magnificent.
And the more you look, the more you see the animals in there. We've got parrots, we've got squirrels. And what's wonderful about crewel work, strawberries, they are strawberries. What's wonderful about the motifs in crewel work is that they're all at different scales. They're not a proportion to each other. If you look at the size of the stag compared to the size of the squirrel.
Yes, yes, yes.
So it's where the person that has stitched it has got those motifs perhaps out of the pattern book, and just not cared about the scale of them and just gone for it. And it's just such an explosion of colour and skill. It's absolutely magical.
Has this had to have a lot of conservation?
It has. Before I started working here, it has been rebacked.
Right.
But more recently, and something that I've had the great pleasure of working on this piece, is being able to get it hung on the wall properly again, so it can be enjoyed by our visitors.
Yeah.
And the method for that is to actually use Velcro. It's the method, the
new
approved
method,
yes.
isn't it? Not nailing it against the wall.
Not nailing it against the wall. No. I mean, this would have originally been hung round a bed on little metal hooks.
Okay.
So those metal hooks have been removed. We've kept them as part of its provenance and history, but replaced those with a Velcro strip across the top. So you've got your Velcro strip with cotton tape stitched to either side, and then that is hand stitched with a broken zigzag stitch along the top there.
Okay.
And that stitch is a flexible stitch. So as the piece expands and contracts with different temperatures and changes in the climate of the room, it doesn't buckle.
Right.
And again, it's one of a set of 4. So we have another piece pretty much identical in size and the design, and then 2 other narrower pieces.
Really?
Similar to the tapestries, they'll be rotated
around for conservation purposes.
Yeah. Okay, so welcome to the Queen's dressing room. Another lovely colour.
Love the colour.
We were going to do this one the same colour as next door, actually, and this was the undercoat, but we quite liked it, so we left it.
I love it. It's sort of a
one of the
lovely
Muncaster
rose
secrets.
colour. I mean, it's the same sort of red, you know, it's got the red.
It very much
hues
complements it.
As the Queen's room, but this is, I'm just looking around, it's just lovely.
Nice and soft.
Yeah, good rose.
So this is one of the pieces I wanted to show you. This is from the silk route, and this is from Uzbekistan. It's Bukhara, and this is one of the pieces that I'm fascinated with at the moment. It's just come out of storage.
Okay.
For me to do a little bit more research on it. So what I found out so far is that the stitching itself is Bukhara couching. So you've got a layered thread with the couching stitches holding it down.
So remind me of the couching again. I did couching on so couching stitches, remind me, how does it work?
So you work with 2 different strands. You lay a piece on top, and then the stitching goes over the top to hold that in place. It's usually used on something more like what we've got behind us with the metal thread embroideries. So when a thread cannot physically go through the fabric, you would couch it down instead. So
that's exactly right. So when I was doing my embroidering and I was using gold thread, we were couching. Thank you.
That's exactly right. This is still couching, but it's all in silk.
Oh, wow.
So the green edging has been added on at a much later date.
Okay.
So ignore the green edging, I would say. But what's really interesting about this piece is the seam down the centre. So my theory, based on the research I've done so far, is that this is actually 2 ends of what was a marriage sheet.
And remind me, what is a marriage sheet?
Sure. So the traditions of countries like Uzbekistan, as soon as a young girl was born, she would begin stitching her dowry textiles. So this is a dowry textile piece. The family would have
stitched by the girl.
Stitched by the girl, stitched by their family. All of the ladies would have been constantly stitching all of the time to create their dowry textiles. A marriage sheet was very important. It would have been a plain sheet, really a linen piece with beautifully decorated borders, which is what I think these pieces are. That would have been used on the marriage night.
On the marriage night.
The plain sheet in the centre.
And then
after the marriage night would have then been taken back to the family to prove that the girl had been a virgin.
Right.
It's unlikely that the centres of these pieces do survive for obvious reasons. However, the beautiful embroidery would have been saved. It would have been unpicked from that centrepiece and then reused. It would have been passed to the next generation, maybe saved for a future generation, or turned into something else. This, I think, is the seam down the centre is much more recent. It's someone who has found these pieces, put them back together to save them, to keep that embroidery, and keep and
then they just decided to put
and
some
then this
type of
edging. I'm
decorative-
not quite sure what they were thinking with the edging. I'm not a big fan of it, to be honest.
Maybe it was like a runner.
A runner.
Some sort.
It's quite a long piece. So yes, it's it would have perhaps gone over something or a table, but the stitching is absolutely exquisite. The tiny stitches in that beautiful silk. I mean, look at the sheen on the lighter colours as well. It's quite amazing.
How do they do all this?
And the designs for these pieces would have been designed by a lady called the Kalamkash, which would be a lady in every town or village. They would have had their own Kalamkash who would have designed.
Oh, so she would have
drawn it on by pencil onto the linen ground, drawn it on in pencil or whatever they had.
Right.
And
then the girl and family members would start to the embroidery.
Absolutely. And the motifs within them would have been very specific to that region, to that area as well.
So you could do even further research and find out, if this is Uzbekistan, you could find out from the motifs here what region this actually came from.
So and again, we think this is something that John Freshfield Ramsden, Iona's great-grandfather, collected as part of his escapism during the war and sent back. Again, the colours in this are amazing, especially the reds and the pinks. Those tend to be colours that fade first.
Yeah.
And we're very lucky at Muncaster to have so many reds and pinks surviving in the collection.
And we don't know roughly the date of this?
I'm still trying to work that out a little bit more, but 18th, 19th century.
Right. Oh, it's absolutely stunning.
A challenge in historic homes like Muncaster and Mapperton is to display the textiles so they can be enjoyed and studied, but also conserve these precious collections for the future. In the Great Hall, Kim showed me one of Muncaster's treasures.
So this is the marriage chest. It's a Swiss marriage chest.
It's beautiful.
And I've got the key in my pocket.
Oh, yes, you do.
It's quite a key.
It is. It's some really intricate marquetry here.
Yes, the more you look, the more you see in it, with all the marquetry in here with the plants, and then we've got some beasts here.
It's beautiful. Okay, so we're going to open
Should
it
we
up.
open it up?
Yes.
Ready?
Yeah.
Here we go. Okay.
Oh, wow. Oh my goodness.
Perhaps not what you might expect.
Look
Inside.
It says a textile report, work undertaken by you.
That's me.
Fantastic. All right, so tell me about what's in here now. Beautifully, by the way, conserved.
When we opened the chest in 2020, 2021, all the items in there were folded. There was no packaging, there was a little bit of acid-free tissue paper in there from a previous conservation effort, but everything was folded.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
Folds mean creases, mean areas of weakness, which is damaging to delicate textiles, especially silk, and there was a lot of silk.
Right, so was the silk shredding at that point?
Luckily, it wasn't.
Okay.
It wasn't, we caught it. However, there were some very deep creases forming in those pieces.
Yes.
So we literally got everything out. The chest actually was in the drawing room at the time. It's since moved to this location.
I mean, you've labelled it beautifully.
Absolutely. So inside each of these tubes, they're all cardboard tubes. We had a little adventure to the carpet shop in Whitehaven, just up the road, and collected lots of their cardboard tubes.
Yeah.
However, cardboard is quite a challenging thing because it off-gases. Over time, it gives off harmful vapours to textiles and will discolour them and deteriorate them over time. So we have to put a buffer on there. And we use kitchen tinfoil.
Really?
So we cover this sounds crazy.
Yeah.
And we cover them in foil.
You've covered
the tube.
The tube,
the
inside and out.
Inside and out with
foil. Okay.
And mainly on the outside. The inside is okay.
Yeah.
But the outside, yes. Then if the textile that we're wanting to roll has a pile, has quite a deep embroidery on it, we also wrap some wadding, like quilt wadding, around the tube.
Okay.
And then we cover the whole thing with bandage, like leg bandage. And that holds all of that nicely together and leaves us with a nicely prepared tube ready to roll our textile onto.
Right.
So we roll it on with acid-free tissue paper inside all of the layers as well.
Okay.
And that helps to prevent any colour run within it.
Yeah.
And store them beautifully.
So you're taking this carpet here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is I can see it's an ottoman cut velvet and metal thread panel. So it's a panel, sorry, not a carpet, but a panel. So you've taken that, you've put acid-free paper on one side, then put it on the top, and then rolled it.
Absolutely, yes. So you lie the piece
tight, or does it matter?
Mid. You want it to be snug enough so it doesn't shift whilst it's on the tube.
Okay.
But you don't want it too tight that it distorts the fabric.
Okay.
So it's really important when we roll things that they're rolled evenly.
Right.
And that there is a layer of tissue between each layer.
Okay.
And also that they're rolled face out. I'll just pop this down a second.
Yeah, it's probably quite
heavy. So that they're rolled face out. And what that does, it allows the face of the embroidery to relax around the tube.
Then you're sticking it inside this cardboard tube that has tinfoil.
It's going on the outside of the cardboard tube.
Oh my gosh.
So it goes around the cardboard tube.
It goes around the... Okay. Oh my gosh. Because when you look at that, you think that it's a big... I thought it was...
No, it's actually quite small. This piece here is only about this big.
I see. So how big is the cardboard tube?
The cardboard tube's about this.
This.
And the bandage we use is 10 centimetre bandage.
Tin foil?
Bandage. Tin foil, sometimes wadding, then bandage.
Yep.
Acid-free tissue, textile, And then the outer layer is more acid-free tissue. And then this is a material called Tyvek.
Okay.
And this is a material that moths do not like. They love what's inside, but they can't get in once we've put this on. It also allows the textile to breathe. So Tyvek is breathable one way, but not the other. It's magic material. And then we tie it with cotton tape loosely around where the textile is, but still firmly enough to hold it very tight at the ends so nothing crawls inside. And in this chest here, this is only really phase 1. We need a bigger castle. I know that sounds crazy as well.
I hear you on that one.
To progress to the next level of care for these items, they would be suspended on racks instead of all being on top of each other. They would be
racks, but
so
in acid-free paper.
The bottom, the ones on the bottom are not getting crushed.
Yeah. Yeah, I see what you're saying. How many do you have in here?
There were over 100 items in this chest. There were.
What?
Some of the items that were folded, that were considerably larger, are now stored elsewhere.
Right, in another chest.
Where the tubes could be long enough for them.
There were 100
there
items
were 100
folded
items in this chest.
And you've done such an amazing curator report. So if somebody comes here like me, I can basically read exactly
what happened.
and in 100 years, they'll be able to read it to you.
Exactly, yes.
Exactly what happened.
We're very aware of continuing to add to the archive of Muncaster. Also from a conservation point of view, this is an important thing. So
amazing.
A future conservator or future curator knows what has already been done to these items. We always leave time capsules all over the place as well. So when the lady that does our upholstery comes, she leaves newspaper cuttings and things inside chairs that she's upholstered. So the next person to upholster it can find them. If any walls are replastered, we put things in what's happening at the time as a momentum of the time that those renovations, repairs, conservation work took place.
This is amazing. So how long did it take you? That's my last question. I could be here all day, but how long did it take you?
We were working on it pretty much every single day, myself, and we formed a little textile bubble during lockdown, and it was 3 or 4 months. Wow! And this is just one chest.
Well, if you need,
this is just one chest.
If you need any help, and if I have any time, I would like to sign up for that volunteering project.
You'd be very, very welcome.
Okay, great. That's a deal. Kim, this is outstanding. This is like the cherry on the top of our tour that we've just done on textiles. Honestly, just to see this and to see how well it's been conserved for future generations and the effort that went into this is incredible. So well done to you and the team that's done this.
Very exciting.
Brilliant. Thanks, Kim. What a treat.
At Muncaster, you literally can sense history all around. From its remote location to its impressive interiors, you can imagine those who have gone before walking these rooms.
Well, in you come, Julie. This is what we call the King's Room. So it's a very important room to the family because it's reputedly where at least 2 kings have stayed. The first king is Edward VIII.
Oh, wait, okay, really? Edward VIII, who was Edward VIII for a nanosecond, and he abdicated Wallace Simpson.
Because of Wallace Simpson.
He stayed here.
He came in, he technically wasn't the king, he was Prince of Wales.
Of course.
He was on a tour around the Cumbrian mines, and he stayed at Muncaster Castle. And we know that because his bodyguard came quite a few years ago and said he spent the most uncomfortable night of his life here because he had to patrol up and down the corridor protecting the king, and he was terrified of the ghosts. And the bodyguard, not the king, and the king slept soundly in this bed. And so we know Edward VIII has slept here.
Wow!
But the far more important king to us is Henry VI. Because as we mentioned briefly downstairs, the only reason we think the family's still here is because of Henry VI and the Luck of Muncaster.
Okay.
He was the son of Henry V, the famous king who won the Battle of Agincourt in 1415, hurrah.
Yes.
And in fact, Henry VI was the only man in history to be crowned King of England and King of France because of his father's conquests.
Right, that's right. It's ringing a bell. It's ringing a bell.
But compared to his father, he's a bit of a disappointment because he was not nearly as good a general as his father and kept losing battles.
Okay.
And the French started taking their country back.
Oh.
And he was sort of the central character in what's now called the Wars of the Roses.
Yes, yes,
and he was thrown off the throne by Edward of York, Boo Hiss, who were staunch Lancastrians here, and those Yorkist upstarts. And Henry escaped into Scotland, raised another army, came back, and in 1464 was defeated again at the Battle of Hexham.
Oh, kind of feel sorry for him.
Yeah, you do feel sorry. Yeah. He's just useless fighting. You know, his wife, Margaret of Anjou, she was quite formidable. Anyway, Margaret, his queen, and the Prince of Wales fled another way, and Henry fled into West Cumberland with a single servant, hoping some of them would survive, escape from the Yorkists. So the story goes, he turned up at the next stately home down the road asking shelter, and they quite sensibly said, no, you're not king anymore. If we take you in, we'll be in trouble.
Really?
So they threw him out, and he left he hid in the woods and put a curse on the place. But after that, he came wandering over this way. He was found on the hillside.
Him and just one
servant,
just
a
one
chap
servant,
called
right.
Sir Richard Tunstall, we believe.
Okay.
And he was found by Pennington shepherds wandering on the hillside, and there's now a monument there to Henry, and we don't know whether the monument is, and it's called Chapels because Holy King Henry, even though he was useless general, he was known as Holy King Harry because he almost got canonised as a saint after his death.
Wow.
And the shepherds brought him into the castle, and Sir John Pennington was living here. He was a very old man, but he'd fought with his father at the Battle of Agincourt, so he was a staunch Lancastrian. He took the king in, gave him breakfast. He disappears from the records for some time, and we think he stayed here for 2 or 3 weeks and given shelter by the family. Now, when he left, he was so pleased with his reception that he left his little enamel drinking bowl, so the legend goes, saying, as long as this bowl remains unriven, Penningtons from Muncaster never shall be driven. In other words, as long as you don't break this bowl, you keep the castle.
Yes.
And weirdly, again, the hairs are standing up on the back of my neck, and they often do when I tell that story. So the bowl is now known as the Luck of Muncaster.
Oh, that's so exciting. And you're still here.
We're still here. It's only the family know where it's hidden, so if I tell you where it is, you'll have to make your escape, because I'll have to kill you.
Okay, fine.
But it is in the castle.
Okay.
Iona doesn't dare bring it out and put it on public display.
No, because
it's our most prized possession.
That's right.
And it's beautiful Murano Venetian glass.
Is it?
It's very delicate. It's very dirty because we don't dare wash it or clean it.
Okay,
but it's still intact. It's still here, and we still have the castle.
It's amazing. That could be, I have to say, Peter, and I'm not just pulling your leg here, that could be one of my favorite historic house stories I've actually ever heard.
That's good. It's lovely. It's very important to us.
Yeah.
And it's weird when we do occasionally bring it out to check it. We normally check about once a year. Get it back in its box and hidden in its secret place. And there's lots of other stories with it. There's a story that somebody was trying to get rid of. They didn't like the Penningtons, and they supposedly got the bowl and threw it away and tried to smash it on the shore, and it landed on sand and didn't break. The story is when the Scots were attacking at one point, they took the most prized possession, took it down the cannon bank, the bank just below the castle, to the river, and they were going to hide it, dig a ditch in the river at low tide, and so cover it with sand, then it'd be covered by sand and water, and no one would find it. And on the way down, carrying it out the castle, they dropped the box, and they went, and they hid it, and then the Scots raiders passed, and they dug it up after, and this is a story I didn't really believe, and they dug it up afterwards, and but they didn't dare open the box because they thought they'd broken it.
I see.
And so the story goes, they waited something like 30 years or 3 generations, and then they dared to think, we're still here. They opened the box and found they'd used enough straw, whatever, to pack it, and it was still intact. Now, I heard that story, I thought, that's a load of cobblers. And we had a glass expert here looking at it one year from Sotheby's, and he said, it's strange, I don't understand why the glass is in quite good condition, but the enamel is all faded. And I said, well, I don't know if it helps, but he told them that story. He said, that would fit perfectly, because it was hidden in the river, it would get contaminated with river mud, and the mud and the effect of the earth would decay the enamel, but not the glass. So he said, that actually fits. And I'm going, another example, one of these legends handed down through the centuries maybe does have a modicum of truth.
Exactly.
The history and stories held at Muncaster are fascinating, and there are many more to uncover.
Well, this is a delightful room because there's lots of secrets hidden in this room.
I can already tell you, Peter, that this is going to be my favorite room in the house because I'm a novice archivist, and I love anything that basically dates back to hundreds of years and even 1,000 years. And I know you're bordering on that. 1,000 years. You're bordering, aren't you?
Almost, yeah. Well, we have a Roman slab that's 1,800 years or whatever. But,
there you go, exactly. Yeah. Now I can hear, where are we in the castle?
Oh, we're the top of the tower now. So it gets a bit windswept up here. So, and you're in Wild West Cumberland now.
Yes.
So
the weather is making sure that we hear it, and it's making an appearance.
I hope we don't start rocking. Yeah. But we shouldn't, because it was built to keep the Scots out. So
that's exactly right.
So don't worry, we should be safe. But I'm also an amateur archivist, I'm afraid. I mean, just an enthusiast.
Yep.
And Kim and our other team of curators normally tell me off for doing things. So I'll try and do this properly.
Great. Well, we're in it together then.
So with various things, starting from relatively modern, we've got a lovely little letter here, which when I read it, and it's basically, Dear Sir John Ramsden, who is Ewan's great-great-grandfather, Iona's great-grandfather. Dear Sir John Ramsden, thank you for your letter, which I have not answered yet. It appears that Beaufail is safe in your hands, as it would be in the hands of the National Trust. I remain yours sincerely, Beatrice Heelis. Now, I'm sure you know who Beatrice Heelis really is.
Beatrix Potter.
That's Beatrix Potter, and this is from 1926, obviously just around the time the National Trust was being set up, and Beatrix Potter was donating many of her farms, which she'd bought with her proceeds from Peter Rabbit and books like that.
Yes.
And she was instrumental in protecting the environment and looking after things, and just exactly what we're trying to do, keep things for the future of generations. And there's a long list of correspondence where she's writing to Sir John about how the land has been dealt with, and we don't have the intervening letter, because obviously that must be in the Beatrix Potter collection somewhere,
of course.
where he's explained to her how they're looking after and taking care of the land. And so this letter is going sort of correspondence closed. No, we don't need to take this land into that of the National Trust.
Or in the National
and you're doing
Trust,
a very good
and
job,
you're doing a very...
Sir John.
How
So that's lovely. That's sort of 1926.
Wonderful.
This is
so I get this
great-grandfather.
To great-grandfather.
I'll talk to him as my great-grandfather, but the fact that is Sir John,
Exactly.
who inherited Muncaster in 1917, so is responsible for the whole Muncaster estate.
Okay.
Now, this is a beautiful little thing. I mean, now we take it for granted. Ewan says, oh, Dad, things are different now. He'll pop on a plane to Barcelona for the weekend with his kids, whereas when I was growing up, a day trip to Boulogne in France was incredible. It was going to the edge of the known world. And this is Lord Muncaster's passport. And this dates from the 1870s. And there's all sorts of adverts in here, as you probably, maybe don't get. But it opens out, and it's almost a personal document from...
Yes, so this is fascinating. And this is what passports looked like.
This is what passports look like. And there it is.
You've got to be kidding me. So there's no photo?
Well, obviously, there were photos around then, but no photos.
No, but no photos for the passport.
But it's just the Royal Crest and Mr. George William Frederick, Earl of Clarendon, who I think was the Foreign Secretary.
Who said that this is his passport, Lord Muncaster's passport.
Requests and requires a name for Majesty, obviously Queen Victoria, all those to whom it may concern, to allow, and that's the pre-printed bit, so this is the bit you fill in. You can see, so Lord Muncaster, a Member of Parliament, who's an MP, accompanied by Lady Muncaster, travelling on the continent.
Wow.
With two maid servants who aren't named.
Right.
In other words, this bit of paper allows his lordship to turn up with his wife and 2 or 3 servants and be allowed to pass freely without let or hindrance, and to afford him every assistance and protection of which he may stand in need. Given at the Foreign Office, London, the 5th day of February, 1870.
Wonderful.
Signature of the bearer. Lord Muncaster's had to sign it, and he's just signed it. Muncaster.
And did they do any stamps? So when he was visiting,
yes,
could we see?
I think there's a stamp there, and
I see.
There was another stamp. Yeah, there's a stamp here. London, the 7th of February, 1870.
Yes.
My French isn't very good, but...
no, but it looks like, there we go.
So presumably they passed over into France. Then
they
were just allowed to go wherever they wanted to on the continent.
How wonderful.
Then something slightly more visual. This is a beautiful book, which we normally actually keep in the library, and it's getting quite old. But this is Views of Muncaster in 1810. So this is by a friend of Lady Muncaster who came. So this is a previous Lord Muncaster, because of course they're all called the same. And sometimes it's hard working out who's who. Just beautiful. The early paintings of the castle, and you still have. And I'd love almost to recreate this sketching, because we still have gardeners with rakes and wheelbarrows, although sometimes they have modern vehicles like all-terrain vehicles and strimmers. And I think back here,
that was lovely.
There are some lovely sort of etchings.
So was this just given as a gift?
I think this lady came to stay, and a good friend of Lady Muncaster. And of course, what did young ladies do? They had plenty of time in their hands. You'd have to do ladylike pursuits
painting,
and go out and painting,
embroidering,
yes,
exactly. I see, and she's went around the estate.
And we know this is 1810. Of course I can't.
Went around the estate, and then, that's lovely.
But there's some lovely. What's important to us is some lovely early pictures of the castle. So, for example, here you have the castle and the stable yards where you were having the church is here. And obviously, this is before the restoration works.
But you can see all the trees that are still here.
Yes, some of the trees.
Wonderful.
Although there are other pictures. Yes, for example, there's the front door of the castle, and the steps used to come straight out. And the wind that you hear howling, obviously whistled right through the castle. So in the 1860s, they tried to redesign it. So we got a slightly strange front door. It's sort of tucked around the side. We have to have a big sign saying castle entrance here.
Yes.
And there's the tower without the beautiful oriel windows that you'd sit and look at the view. And that wonderful picture of the castle. Before the tower on the far side has been built.
When was that built then?
Well, we think about the 1830s, although there's a big reworking of the castle, as often happened in the Victorian age in the 1860s by Anthony Salvin, a very famous Victorian architect who turns up everywhere.
Yes, he does.
This to me is just
it's lovely, and it's a fantastic record
of delight. And there's some lovely. There's almost the workers lying around there and leaning on their hoes and looking at the and this is after Wordsworth, and that people have started to appreciate landscape.
Yeah, lovely. What a fantastic record. It was a gift.
Yes, I think she. I don't know how long she stayed here. We maybe need to look through the diaries and things. We'll find. There's some debate, but I think she was called Thornton, and a friend of Lady Muncaster's. So beautiful. And it gives us so much, because you see things like a summer house. That summer has been there since at least 1810.
Yes, exactly. That is wonderful.
And then, well, as you can see, we're surrounded by boxes, but probably one of our most exciting books. And this is
all of your kit.
I think the oldest book in the house, and it shows you how precious things were, because this book has been written on, rewritten on, turned around, written on again, as paper is obviously very expensive. And this, we actually call it the Book of Spells, because when Iona was a child living here, her and her cousins were scared of this book, because they knew a wise woman had written recipes, as they're called, in the margins of the pages. And they were scared of this book because there were recipes, for example, for learning secrets, which we'll maybe see in a minute. But it's basically an account book. And there's all sorts of information, which is fascinating, giving the value of things and what people were being paid. And it's about 100 years this book covers.
And what does this date back to?
I think the early 1600s, up to the early 18th century or the early 1700s.
Oh my goodness.
Obviously it's fascinating to us because the names of people who worked here. There's also a lot about the breeding of horses and farm animals and the names. There's a horse called Bounteous Lips and things like that.
How funny.
And very strange names. But it's really beautiful, and the different handwriting, and bought of Mr. Jackson, bought of John Troughton. It goes into the 1700s.
So now we're in the 1700s, I see.
And quite late into the 1700s.
Look at the writing, but it's also legible. That's what's wonderful.
Some of it's legible, and we're trying to transcribe this. We hope we'll eventually make it available on the internet and things. Because people from all over the world are interested in it.
Of course. What fun.
But then you turn it over.
It's a different colour.
And it's a leather bound rather than cloth bound. And there's details about mining and how to make paint and stuff.
Really?
And you see here's one of the spells. So there's a gap there where they haven't filled in. It's a totally different writing.
And it says a receipt to make
a recipe.
One discover secrets.
Yes. Take a dram of the seeds of an apple called thorn apple, love apple, or rage apple, beat it to powder, and give it to the party to drink in any liquor. And then they'll blab and tell you all the secrets.
Right.
Sounds a bit and actually, I think the seeds of these apples are actually full of arsenic and not to be recommended. There's probably a bit of
But look
poison.
at this one. This one, I'm sure it says to make something vomit. Do you see that?
To make a dog vomit.
To make a dog,
things like that. I think so yes, it's all sort of faith cures and things. And just look at the writing. It's
look at
really
this.
beautiful, and there are deeds and things.
Yeah, I can see this is a little bit tricky to read compared to what we were reading prior to this, but it's interesting. You can basically pull out words here and there, and then once you do that, then it's going to be easier to transcribe.
You get
an eye for
the
it.
eye for it, and you realise that you pick up a bit of the person. And writing's such an incredible thing. You can write something down on a bit of paper, and they can be reading it centuries afterwards and knowing your thoughts and exactly how you felt.
Yep.
So diaries and things like this are so important. You're transported back to this time.
Well, thank you, Peter. This has been, this is just my heaven right here.
I know, we could spend...
I know, all day, which I would actually love to do. I would like to, I can't even go there. What I would like to I could spend all day.
And there are beautiful things
through.
in this place, but this is the thoughts of people and
that's what's so special.
It's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, and the beautiful writing and the care and time and the considered way that they all just wrote things down.
And letters are very important. Write to your parents, kids.
I know. And it's the one thing we have been telling our kids to do, and they still do it, is every time we go on holiday, they have to write a postcard to their grandparents.
Well, and when my mother passed away some time ago, and when we went into her attic, we found all the letters I'd written to her as a student once a week. And actually, you read the letter, you realise what you were officially telling your mother.
Yes.
And you remember, is that what I told her?
Yeah, I told her so she wouldn't worry, or I told her so she wouldn't find out.
And all that stuff. So.
Brilliant. Well, thanks, Peter. What a treat just to be able to come up here. Where am I again? Which tower?
Well, we're in the Peel Tower, we're sort of directly above the front door here.
Okay, in the Peel Tower, with the wind bustling.
Wind howling around
and below.
With my windows that don't quite fit properly, but and we're trying to keep these things. And this is what's important about these places, because we've collected everything over the generations, and they're not dispersed. We're maybe not the best looking after them, and we need help. We work very closely with the local records offices, and they have many of the Manchester archives properly stored, but we're still finding loads and loads of boxes.
Of course you are. Yeah.
And we're trying to do our best to maintain them in proper conditions and make sure they don't decay. But
Exactly.
they're relevant because it's living, because we know who these people well, sometimes we know who the people are.
Right.
They're often our descendants, and of where they're descendants.
Yeah.
And their knowledge is the knowledge of the ancestors is fabulous.
It's fabulous. And the knowledge of the Book of Spells is pretty extraordinary.
But don't grind up apple pips and feed them to people you want to learn secrets from.
No, definitely not going to do that.
Work.
As my visit to Muncaster Castle continues, I step back in time. Woo! And weather the storm, dining by candlelight.
May the roof of your house never fall in, and may the people inside never fall out. Cheers.